Literary agents. What do they do? When do you want one? What is the process of getting an agent? And what does that relationship look like? When you would want a literary agent relates very much to what a literary agent does. First and foremost, a literary agent is someone who should be your greatest advocate as a writer, but let's get a bit more specific. The really big publishers like Macmillan, HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, as well as a lot of great independent presses, don't accept submissions directly from authors. They require what's called agented submissions. And they have this requirement because submissions that have gone through the process of vetting from the agent side have already been in some way determined not just as being a good project, but also one that is probably marketable, i.e. sellable. Remember, folks, this is an industry. In other words, you want an agent if you want a traditionally published novel that slots into this pre-existing support system that a reputable publisher provides, their distribution, their marketing, etc. So if you determine that you want a literary agent, you start what's called the querying process. Quick note, you should only be querying agents if your book is fully finished, edited, revised, and polished. If you're doing nonfiction, though, sometimes they will accept detailed proposals and sample chapters. But for fiction, the project's got to be finished and edited. And check out my videos on editing and revision for some useful strategies and tips for that. As you prepare to query agents, you should start by researching different agents. Do not simply send your project wildly and with abandon to anybody, because each agent represents different genres and has distinct tastes. So to make this process a bit easier, there are some great resources like Query Tracker or Manuscript Wishlist, two great websites that make filtering agents by genre somewhat easier. Another good method is to look at books that you think are similar to yours, flip to the acknowledgement page and see who their agent is, and then see if that agent is open to submissions. Then you need to write what's called the query letter. There's a ton of great resources out there on how to write this very unique document, though I would highly recommend Jane Friedman's advice on her website. But essentially, a well-written query serves a few purposes. One, it introduces the agent to your project with a pitch. Two, it establishes your voice and credibility as a writer, even if you don't have a previous publication history. A well-written query shows the agent that you're taking this really seriously. Three, it shows the agent that you've done your research, not just on them, but also on the market as a whole. For instance, there's a section on the query letter where you're expected to provide comparisons for your project, and these should be very recently published novels that have had some success. So if you're only comparing your project to like Hemingway and Faulkner, I think agents would believe, fairly or unfairly, that you don't read contemporary works, and thus you may not have your finger on the pulse of what's going on. Thus your project may not be terribly marketable. Along with the query letter, agents will often ask for sample chapters. You'll want to look at their agency website for precisely what they want you to send with the query letter. But for these sample chapters, send the first chapters, not like the middle or end chapters. I'd suggest sending your project to a variety of agents, maybe somewhere in the ballpark of like 10 to 15, perhaps more. And now you wait. It's important to keep in mind that agents can take quite a lot of time to get back to you, if they get back to you at all. So you should keep yourself occupied at this time writing your next project. If you don't hear back on your query at all, some authors will nudge agents after like 3 to 4 months, but honestly, I wouldn't. If they haven't asked for any additional materials after reading the query and the sample chapters, they probably just aren't interested, and that's okay. If an agent likes what they saw in your query and the sample chapters, they'll ask for either more chapters or perhaps the full manuscript. And this is really exciting and definitely a good sign, but it doesn't mean that you have an agent just yet. You're still playing the waiting game. Heck, you may never hear from the agent ever again, which stings, but it is what it is. And if multiple agents ask for a full manuscript, you can provide them that manuscript. There's nothing wrong at all with having multiple agents considering the same project. At this stage, the waiting is just almost intolerable. So it's crucial that you're keeping yourself busy working on the next project because, say, an agent does nibble on the project you sent them, it's really great to be able to tell them that you have another project in the works. Also, at this point, if an agent has your full manuscript and it's been like 3 to 4 months since they requested it and you sent it, this is when you might consider nudging them politely to see what's up. Oftentimes these agents are so busy, things can get lost in the works. So after an agent has requested your full manuscript, if you hear back, it will either be a rejection, which that's okay, or an agent asking you to do some edits and send it back for more consideration, or they want to set up a phone call. If it is a phone call, chances are pretty good that they're going to offer you representation, though that's not always the case. They may just want to talk about some edits they'd like to see further. If they are offering, however, the phone call should go a little something like this. The agent opens by saying how great the project is, what they liked about it, their vision for it, all very nice things. They may also say the revisions that they'd like to work on with you before they would send it out to publishers. Now, your job at this point on this phone call is to come prepared with questions. So some important questions to ask at this stage are, if they haven't discussed what revisions they'd want to do to the manuscript, then you would ask what sort of revisions they would like to see. 2, which publishers are they thinking the book should be sent to? If they don't know, or if they kind of hem and haw at this question, this might be a red flag. A good agent reads a project and knows exactly who would be into this. 3, you might ask them, what is their preferred communication style? Are they email, phone, in person? How often do they update their authors who are on submission? These sorts of things. And 4, ask if you can speak to other authors that they represent. This is pretty standard, and if an agent pushes back against this, that may also be cause for concern. And also, finally, ask if they're interested in representing only this book, or if they work with their authors on a bigger career scale. Most of them represent the author, not just the book, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And if they do offer, it can be really tempting to accept on the spot, but it is standard to ask them for a period of time, usually 2 weeks, to make your decision. They should honor this, and if they don't, that's also a red flag. But during this time, this is when you reach out to other agents who have the full manuscript and let them know that you would like to make a decision within 2 weeks, and this will often light a fire under them to get back to you with either their own offer or a rejection. If another agent wants to schedule a phone call, take it. Ask them the same questions, see if they're a better match. Remember, you're making a decision that you think is best for you and your career. And maybe this means not accepting any of the offers of representation if you don't feel that any of them are a good match. But let's say you've accepted an offer of representation, congratulations. Now you and your agent begin revising and polishing the project further before sending it out to publishers. I can do a whole other video on the submission process from there, but a few final points regarding the agent relationship. Your agent is paid when you are paid. The industry standard is they take a 15% cut of what you earn from the writing projects that they represent. If they ask for money up front, they're a grifter and you should run away. Also, your agent has a lot of different clients, so you should be respectful of their time and energy. What I mean is when you send them a new manuscript you're excited about, it's unreasonable to expect them to send you a glowing review overnight. All this being said, you do not need an agent to be a writer. For instance, you may decide that self-publishing or publishing with small presses is what's best for you in your career, in which case that's awesome. It's just different strokes for different folks at the end of the day. But let me know in the comments if you have other questions about anything I said or anything I forgot to say.